Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Inner Spark, the channel where stories light up your inner strength and guide you to a brighter tomorrow. Today's story is about moving from negative thoughts to a positive mindset, a journey many of us struggle with but rarely talk about. Levi's life was ruled by negativity until a chance meeting with Harper sparked transformation. Through setbacks, breakthroughs, and self-discovery, he learned to master his mind. This story shows that even the darkest thoughts can turn into the brightest fuel for growth. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share Inner Spark if this story inspires you. Your support helps us create more stories that touch lives and spark change. Levi sat on his bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying the mistakes of his week. He had been late to work, missed his best friend's call, and snapped at his sister for no reason. Each thought piled on top of the other until his chest felt heavy with shame. His inner voice was merciless. You're useless. You'll never change. He pulled the blanket over his head, hoping to hide from the world and himself. Friends thought he was quiet, but in truth, his silence was a battlefield. He wanted to be better, to break free from the noise, but the harder he tried, the deeper he sank. It was as if negativity had set up camp in his mind and refused to leave. Levi sighed, believing tomorrow would be just another wasted day. Yet, deep down, he longed for someone to prove him wrong. One evening, rain poured across the London streets as Levi wandered aimlessly with his hood up. His shoes were soaked, and his thoughts heavier than the sky above him. He ducked into a small cafe to escape the storm, shaking off droplets as he scanned for a seat. At the back, a stranger sat sketching in a notebook, eyes calm and steady. Levi asked if he could join, and the man nodded with a warm smile. His name was Harper, and his presence felt oddly comforting. Without knowing why, Levi began to open up about his struggles. Harper listened quietly, without interruption or judgment. When Levi finished, Harper said softly, "Your mind isn't broken, it just needs a guide." The words hung in the air like a flicker of light. For the first time in months, Levi felt a spark of hope. That night, Levi couldn't sleep. He lay awake replaying Harper's words. Could it be true that his mind wasn't his enemy? It sounded absurd, yet something in his chest stirred. He grabbed an old notebook from his drawer and began writing down every negative thought crowding his head. The page filled quickly. I'm not smart enough. I'll fail again. Nobody likes me. Seeing it all written down made him shiver. It looked worse in ink than in thought. But as uncomfortable as it felt, there was also relief, as though he'd dragged monsters out from under the bed. He stared at the messy handwriting and whispered, "Maybe this is the first step." For the first time in a long time, his eyes grew heavy not with despair, but with possibility. He drifted into uneasy sleep, clutching the notebook like a lifeline. The next morning, Levi stood in front of the mirror, heart racing. He forced himself to whisper, "I can handle today." His reflection looked unconvinced, mocking him with tired eyes. But he repeated it again, louder this time, until the words didn't sound so foreign. Throughout the day, whenever a negative thought crept in, he whispered it again. It felt silly, almost childish, but surprisingly it slowed the spiral. At lunch, a colleague cracked a joke, and for once, Levi managed to smile back instead of hiding. That night, he opened his notebook and wrote, "Small wins, finished report, didn't panic," smiled. They weren't grand achievements, but they mattered. He realized progress didn't have to be big, it just had to be consistent. For the first time, he felt he was walking in the right direction. Days passed, and Levi began to notice his thoughts more clearly. He carried his notebook everywhere, jotting down when his inner critic grew loud. Patterns emerged. Criticism from others was a trigger, as was comparing himself to his successful peers. Instead of drowning in these spirals, he started challenging them. "I'm still learning. I don't need to be perfect yet." It wasn't easy. The old voice fought back relentlessly. But each time he argued with it, he felt a little stronger. He began jogging in the mornings, letting the fresh air wash away the mental fog. His body grew lighter, his mood brighter, and colleagues began asking what had changed. Levi smiled shyly and said, "I'm learning to speak differently to myself." He was beginning to believe that his mind could be retrained one thought at a time. Then came the first real test. His manager sent a blunt email criticizing his project. Old Levi would have collapsed under the weight of failure. But this time he paused, breathed, and repeated, "This doesn't define me." He reread the email, separating the sting from the facts. Beneath the harsh words, there were constructive points he could use. He revised the project with care, turning frustration into fuel. When he resubmitted it, his manager praised the improvements. That evening, Levi walked home under glowing city lights, feeling taller than usual. His reflection in shop windows no longer mocked him. It seemed to nod back in approval. He realized the truth. His thoughts didn't have to control him. He had the power to choose which ones to listen to. But change wasn't smooth. One Friday night, his old friends invited him out. Nervous but hopeful, he agreed. The evening started fine, laughter filling the air, until one friend joked about Levi being too serious all the time. The comment hit harder than he expected, and negativity rushed back like a tidal wave. "See, they don't really like you," his inner critic hissed. Levi excused himself early, walking home with his chest tight. He sat on his bed, furious at himself for slipping back. But instead of tearing up his notebook, he opened it and wrote, "Fell back tonight. But I tried." Tears blurred the page, yet deep inside he knew something was different. He wasn't quitting this time. Failure didn't mean the end. It meant he was still in the fight. Weeks later, Harper invited Levi to a quiet park for tea. They sat on a bench beneath autumn leaves, the city buzzing faintly in the distance. Levi admitted his setback, expecting disappointment. But Harper only smiled and said, "Growth isn't a straight line. It's a climb with slips and stumbles." He encouraged Levi to treat mistakes not as proof of weakness, but as evidence of progress. Those words sank deep, rewriting the script in Levi's mind. He realized every slip was part of the process, not the end of it. That evening, Levi wrote in bold letters, "I am learning, not failing." For the first time, his notebook felt like a friend, not a reminder of flaws. He closed it with a small smile, knowing he was on the right path. As months rolled on, Levi continued practicing. He meditated for 5 minutes each morning, focusing on his breath and silencing the storm inside. At work, he volunteered to present a small project, something he'd have avoided before. His hands shook, his voice wavered, but he finished, and his colleagues applauded. That night, he celebrated alone with takeaway pizza, grinning like a child. He realized that courage wasn't about being fearless. It was about acting even when fear screamed at you. With each step, Levi's confidence grew, not from perfection, but persistence. His inner critic still whispered, but now its voice was weaker, less convincing. The stronger voice said, "You're becoming who you're meant to be." Levi was beginning to believe it. Yet life wasn't done testing him. His younger sister, Mia, came to him in tears one night, confessing she had failed her university exams. She sobbed, saying she was worthless. Her words echoed Levi's old patterns so closely that his heart ached. For a moment, he froze, unsure how to help. Then, with trembling hands, he handed her his notebook. "These are my battles," he said softly. "You're not worthless. You're just in a storm." They stayed up all night, writing her thoughts, challenging her fears, and replacing them with kinder truths. By morning, Mia smiled weakly, whispering, "Thank you." Levi realized something profound. He wasn't just healing himself. He was now helping others. His pain had found purpose. Levi's story shows us that negativity doesn't vanish overnight. It fights to stay. But every time you stand up, every time you choose a kinder thought, every time you keep moving despite the storm, you win a little more of yourself back. What began as despair turned into discipline, and what felt like weakness became his greatest strength. Harper's words became true. The mind isn't broken. It just needs direction. And once Levi gave his thoughts a compass, he not only transformed his own life, but lit a path for others. So remember this. Changing your mindset isn't about erasing the dark. It's about learning to bring your own light. If this story touched you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Inner Spark. Because every story is a reminder that you're never alone, and your spark can always become a flame.